and they're rejecting him for things that have nothing to do with those reasons. It's not just fear, it's not just doubt, it's not just I'm struggling. It's rather a will to reject the truth of God, a choice to reject God's truth. It's a spiritually dangerous thing.
Here, Mike continues reinforcing the idea that any critical consideration of the evidence that he presents is just a willful rejection of God. As a rule, natural explanations are always going to supersede supernatural explanations in explanatory power. The natural explanation of all of Jesus' miracles being copy-pasted from the Old Testament is far more likely than them actually happening in reality. This is not a willful rejection of your God. It's called critical thought. He begins to lament over the people in his comments section when he says this.
How is it that you're asking? And a lot of times I'm thinking they did watch the video and it just doesn't click. Like there's a brain block keeping things from clicking. So in a video I have where I'm dealing with some atheist propaganda type stuff, and I explain, how history works, how historians treat topics and issues, and I have quotes from a historian to refute some typical atheist comments about history, showing that this is not how history works. And the comments are like, Mike, you still don't get it. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what to tell you. I don't know what to say at that point.
First of all, Christians are the ones with the special implementation of history in order to prove that Jesus both existed and rose from the dead. They have criteria and methods that are only ever applied in biblical studies. When someone from outside the biblical studies field takes a look at the evidence in the biblical studies field, they seem to always come to the conclusion that it's scant and unreliable. Really, that is what Mike is lamenting over. The fact that people are not immediately convinced by his poor explanations for his faith. He's showing his congregation that if anybody just is unconvinced by the arguments and explanations that they give them, then they are just willfully rejecting their God and it's not worth their time.
And it's just, all we're really doing is giving them more truth to reject at some point, and that's what Jesus is dealing with. He wants to deal with the heart of the issue. He disapproves of their motives because it's like they're building up an immunity to evidence, an immunity to proof. And sometimes that's what I see from people who are really aggressively against the truth of Christianity, is they build up an immunity to discovering the truth of Christ. And it's a very sad situation.
The only thing that I'm building up an immunity to is your bullshit. Critical thought about what you believe and why you believe the things that you do can help inoculate you from apologist bullshit.
As someone who does a lot of outreach and does, apologetics, evangelism kind of stuff, I don't really know the right way to respond. Sometimes I'm like, should I just do what Jesus did? No sign for you. Why? Because your heart's all messed up. Because then they're like, yes, finally, you said my heart was messed up. Now I got to play my victim card. And you're talking about how mean you are and how you're trying to judge me and all. And I'm just like, it's like that conundrum in Psalms, like answer the fool according to his folly, right? Or don't answer the fool according to, it's like either way, it's going to be a problem, is the issue there.
Well, just labeling somebody with a messed up heart is very disingenuous, and I can see how they would be upset. Like, if I said, Mike, you're fucked up in the head and Jesus is the one that used it as a fleshlight, would you not be upset by that? Of course you would. Nobody wants to get skull fucked by Jesus. Saying that I have a messed up heart isn't dealing with the actual issue of your evidence being unconvincing. Instead of dealing with the issue, you're just like, well, I guess this guy wants to burn in hell. It places intent and motive upon a person that has done nothing to show that they have those intents and motives.
What's the problem? The problem is they've already received more evidence than most people ever will. And they're still rejecting Christ. Jesus' own presence, fulfilling prophecy, meeting messianic expectations, doing miracles. When people with the most evidence are asking for evidence, that's the problem. That's when you start to go, okay, something else is going on here. Something else is happening here. Evidence doesn't matter here. It's a distraction from the real heart issues that are going on.
The evidence that he gives just isn't good evidence at all. Making it a willful act on our part to not accept or be convinced by Mike's evidence allows him to sidestep the issue of the evidence not being good enough. I feel like this tactic is more about Mike safeguarding his faith for himself. It's not about atheists, agnostics, or non-believers rejecting Christ. It's just the only way that he can rationalize people remaining unconvinced by evidence that convinces him. So what is the evidence that convinces Mike?
The ultimate sign, the resurrection of Christ. Interestingly enough, the evidence for the resurrection is one of the best arguments for the truth of Christianity still today after 2,000 years because we have enough historical evidence still. I think that's so exciting.
There is no historical evidence to corroborate that Jesus rose from the dead. He mentions Gary Habermas, but Gary Habermas isn't really a historian. He's an apologist. His arguments, especially the minimal facts thing that he has, are clear apologist rhetoric that is only meant to convince those people that are easily convinced. And it seems that is what Mike wants. For you to be easily convinced by his bad explanations. And perhaps that is the reason why Mike loves Gary Habermas. This entire sermon continues for like 50 minutes. The entire time he's reinforcing to his congregation that it's an us problem. It's the atheists and agnostics and non-believers who have a problem, and it's not a problem with their evidence. This sermon feels like he's trying to teach his congregation how not to critically examine or critically question their own religion, while at the same time he stigmatizes anybody that is unconvinced by the arguments that he gives.